It is Wednesday, August the 7th, 2019. Welcome to week 6 of Introduction to Corrections. I am Professor Richard Wright, and I'm going to spend some time going over the assignment for this week, and then I'm going to make some comments about the written assignment for week 7 of the course project, and remind you of things that are for that. Remember, that assignment is not due until a week from Sunday. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Okay, you can see this page you're familiar with. And then I'm going to go down, scroll all the way down. As you can see, our week 6 lecture, and then next week there won't be a lecture. Then there'll be 2 more, weeks 8 and weeks 10. And so we're moving pretty fast through the quarter. So let's look at the announcement for this week. The prison experience, male versus female, section 6, 8, and 11 of the text. I previously sent you the PowerPoints to coincide with that. And so that's your reading. And then your activities, classification, myth versus fact, and then closing with thoughts from a prison lieutenant. Your discussion posts, issues unique to female inmates, were due last night, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, and your reply posts are due Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then finally, you have 2 written assignments, 3 issues in male prisons today, and Stanford prison experience. Those assignments are due this Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then, as you know about my motto, adversity is a springboard to success. So let's take a look at the course calendar. Course calendar, here we are. This is where we are today. Your reading assignment was due Monday. Your initial post, click on that, was due yesterday. And then your reply post Saturday. And then your 2 written assignments that I just mentioned are due the 11th, which is this Sunday coming up. Okay. And then you'll have week 7 that comes in after that. And then the written assignment and course project, I'll talk about those in the end here. Okay, so we are now officially in the second half of the course with week 6. So those of you who have not completed your weeks 1 through 5 that missed assignments, I'm not going to be taking those unless I have some previous arrangements set up with you. So 6 assignments as of Monday. So let's take a look at that module for week 6. And again, let's go over the assignment. 3 issues in male prisons today. And then it tells you a 2-page paper. Notice 2 pages. And you know what that means. Double space. It means 12-point Roman. It means citations in the body, APA format, and references at the end with a cover page. And I've been talking about APA the whole quarter. Make sure you run your papers through Grammarly. You each should have a Grammarly account that is provided to you by the school, and you use your school email, and you're able to get it. And then check the plagiarism box for the percentage of plagiarism. So you're going to deal with the issues. And then here is the rubric, all-important rubric. It tells you how I'll be grading you. And if you look at the rubric, it tells you the requirements. Now, when you see you will see after this a section for comments. That's where you will see your comments about your written assignments for each of the sections, okay? So, and the rubric for the last two parts are always the same, but the information required for the actual assignment is found in the very first part, where quality, content, and accuracy of information is involved. So it's a 2-page paper, not 1.5, not 1 3/4, but 2 full pages. Okay, and that's just one. So citations and references. And then the other written paper is the Stanford Prison Experience. Now, with the Stanford experience, you take a look at this information here and provide answers to these questions with citations in the body and references at the end. And there is a rubric that goes with that, which I don't see, but let me add it to it. Just let me add it to it in a minute. Make sure that we have that rubric, because it should be there. Here it is right here. Okay. Yeah, here it is right there. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the written assignment for week 6 and go back and make sure that you have the rubric. So give me a minute while I edit this. Tells you the due date, so I have to select the rubric. And here it is. Submit it. And then let you see it. All right. So submit it. So now, when you look at the assignment and you click on the rubric, you will see the rubric. There it is, view the rubric. I thought I had put it in there, but here it is. So you view the rubric and it tells you what you have to do. It's a minimum of 1-page paper after you view that video. Make sure that you have run your papers through Grammarly again, and that you have citations in the body and references. Not just citations in the body and not just references at the end, but both. Otherwise, you will lose 5 points right off the bat. So you want to make sure you follow that rubric. And then the other thing that you have here is your discussion. And you know the procedures for doing discussion posts. All right. So now let's go back and let's look at the module itself and talk about the topics that we're going to deal with. So, as you know, Prison is a place where a person is sent to who is there for a extensive period of time, basically a year or more, and as opposed to jail, which is short term. And there are individuals who are classified based on a number of things, such as what their what kind of treatment they need, what kind of crime they committed, and also if it's lower risk, their drug and alcohol treatment, education, job skill training also provided at the facility for inmates. And one of the things, though, that takes place, unfortunately, even in situations, that's why wrongful convictions are dangerous, is because when an inmate is put into prison, they find themselves needing to adjust to the culture of the facility, and they participate in activities where they're what we call unwritten inmate codes, and they pick up the ways, maybe the way they dress, the way they talk, the way that they conduct themselves, and then find themselves, in order to survive, oftentimes aligning or joining with a gang to protect them because of the many things that are taking place. And also, unfortunately, because of the fact that you have some, I should say, guards or correction officers who are participating in bringing in contraband or allowing contraband to come in, and sometimes it's through visitors, but most time it's the other way. And substances such as drugs, and even some alcohol, even weapons come in, and some clothing that individuals have that's not the prison garb. But some of the most serious things that become contraband are weapons and drugs. I shared this before, that I had a young man that I represented who was a correction officer, and what he did was he got terminated because of the fact that he was allowing favors for the inmates. And one of the things that he did, he'd bring in magazines. Now, I'm not talking about sexy magazines or anything like that. I'm even talking about things like Sports Illustrated or something that's innocent as that. But here's what the problem was, is that those magazines that they were bringing in were given to the inmates, and before they brought them in, they were soaked in PCP or some other kind of liquid drug, allowed to dry out. They were even they weren't wrinkled so that you could tell they had been soaked. And the bottom line was that what the individuals would do is they would get these magazines in prison, and then they would chew the pages and get high. Now, that's just one of the ways. Another way is through, of course, fruit, where a needle has been placed into the fruit, and in the needle were drugs that were injected into the fruit, and when the individuals ate the fruit, they had access to drugs and things of that nature. So the fact of the matter is that it is a problem in prisons that takes place constantly. And then another issue is the sexual assaults that take place in prison. And it says here that the sexual aspects were so bad that in 2003, the President of the United States signed what we call the Prison Rape Elimination Act, which provided information and training to inmates and to other individuals. And but the truth of the matter is that it didn't eliminate it. It minimized it. And so the problem of rape still persists in the prisons, even as we speak today. And though the guards or the correction officers and other staff members are trained to watch out for it, it's still kind of hard to prevent it from happening. And also another major issue is the actual violence that takes place, and that comes from situations where there are, as I said, various gangs, and the two factions will do battle with each other in prison on a regular basis. And so it creates a situation that the prison guards have trouble keeping up with that, and the violence still exists. And so a lot of these same issues apply to also females and female correctional facilities. And as of now, because what happens with many females is they end up in prison because they were collaborating or generally doing something with a person or a guy. And so the inmate population continues to climb. So, and then our module tells us that the females that are incarcerated are for usually nonviolent crimes, but they will carry drugs or participate in providing drugs, and as a result, they find themselves being on the level where the number of females being incarcerated increases. Some female issues are also dealing with the emotional issues, keeping the female from family and particularly their children, and separating them. And it's a real serious issue. It results in some attempted suicide, and then there are also other issues involved with females, such as the network that they end up getting involved in order to survive in the prisons as well. And there is an ongoing problem with sexual assault from the guards, the male guards themselves, not to mention that the females, but the male guards themselves. And so it continues on, and it is one of the serious issues that take place in prison. And so what it is, that the prison itself is hard to contain and protect individuals there for a number of reasons, because there are not enough correction officers or guards to the percentage of individuals that are incarcerated. That's why it results in one of the major problems is overcrowding, as many of you have already discovered in your discussion posts, and that the prison inmate to guard ratio is rather high, and so it's really hard for the guards or individuals to deal with the issue themselves. So you'll find in the end that there are some of the same problems that take place in female prisons take place in male prisons as well. So now let's take a look at some misconceptions regarding prisons and prison life, and we're going to go over these, and we're going to open this up, and we're going to discuss a little bit about some of the things. And I've already said about some of the things, but in your readings as well as your PowerPoints, you will find the answers to these myths or facts. So the question is it a myth that inmates easily adjust to prison life? And some people think that inmates do, but actually the contrary is true, and that what happens is that they don't. So I'm going to put no, and then we're going to go to it. Okay, let's go back to the previous one. And so then the question is, are prisons controlled and inmates closely monitored? I've already addressed that issue. And actually, it is a myth that inmates are closely monitored, though there is an attempt to do so, but because the number of inmates, as I said, ratio to those incarcerated is rather high, it is pretty easy for prisons to be out of control, and there to be instances, many instances, where there are riots that take place and attempts to take over. Okay. Then let's go to the next one. Contraband is rare. I've already addressed that issue. Contraband is not rare. It constantly comes in the form of drugs, alcohol, as well as weapons. And that is exactly what happens. And again, one of the problems is because of the shortage of correction officers. Why is the shortage of correction officers? Because there are not enough that are going to school for it? Not really. It's because of the budgetary restraints that many organizations, like the county, the state, and some of the municipalities have in terms of having prisons. So primarily, it is a state issue that creates the problem where the funds are not allocated to be able to hire enough. And then the other thing is that some of the pay, now it's starting to go up because the idea is to hire more individuals who are more highly educated. It used to be individuals were hired out of high school more. Now they're starting to hire more out of college with associates and bachelor's degrees. Myth. Most inmates are sexually assaulted, particularly when new to the institution. Those things are true. They do happen where inmates are sexually assaulted when they don't know their way around. They call them newbies. And when they get there, one of the things is that there are some lifers or extended term individuals who are there, or those who have been there multiple times, who actually know how to survive in the system, and they know how to take advantage of individuals who are there. And then, of course, you know, as I said, there are too many people placed in prison in situations where it's later discovered that they were wrongfully convicted and sentenced to prison, but by that time the damage is done, and those individuals then oftentimes actually do become criminals in order to survive. Due to tight control, assaults are rare. And then that's another thing. Yes, it's not true. I already addressed that. Assaults happen constantly, and it's like an ongoing battle between the inmates and the correction officers and those individuals in other areas of the staff of the prisons themselves. And because of the shortage of numbers, again, it's often something that does happen. Assaults are there. Prison guards enjoy their power and fight rehabilitation efforts because of the fact that more and more prison guards, correction officers are now hired with more education. It is not so much the power issue there. It's the idea to try to get these individuals through the process, and with the movement toward rehabilitation, many guards are moving to work in that form, not to just overpower, because that can create a situation that can jeopardize the actual guards and visitors and other individuals who participate in providing services for the facility itself. That's not true either. I already told you that the opposite is women are often sent to prison because of being involved in some activity with another individual, particularly a male individual, and that the inmate population for female prisons is on the rise. Female inmates form quasi-family units in prison, including same-sex relationships. Well, that happens to a point, but the point of the matter is that individuals who are incarcerated that are female generally will do whatever it needs to adapt to the survival while they're in the facility, and there is some same-sex relationships that do come about because of the assaults and rapes and things of that nature. The majority of female inmates are young and unattached. Actually, they are young, but they are attached. Often they have children and close family members that they are removed from when they're incarcerated. So that's not true. And then finally, that's the end of that right there. Okay. So as you have gone through and read the chapters and looked at the PowerPoints, you will discover the things that I've talked about that are true. So now, before we go through some thoughts, well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. Let's look at a prison lieutenant, this video that will give you some ideas about the classification of inmates and what goes on in a prison. So I'm going to remove my headphones. And it's about 7-minute video, 8-minute video. And then I'm going to stop my video camera. And then I'm going to give you the opportunity to pay attention to this.
Corrections Lieutenant, Minnesota Correction Facility in St. Cloud, which is our intake facility for the whole department of Minnesota. I've been in the department for 28 years. I started as a corrections officer, promoted to corrections sergeant, and now my current position, corrections lieutenant. I am also the team leader for our special operations response team, and I also do a lot of training in that area.
So what do you need to be a corrections officer? What are the minimum requirements?
GED or high school diploma. You apply online, and then they set up the testing. The test consists of a writing component, a video component. You pass the test, you grant an oral interview, a series of questions that they all get scored. You pass that, then all candidates pass that, fill out a former criminal background check, predatory offender check, and criminal history check. So then I'll start doing that. If you pass all those, then you get offered a job. You get on a list to get offered a job. You need to be can't be incarcerated within the past year, or you need to provide documentation that you're off supervised parole or release, not that's been completed.
Okay, so you do not need a 2-year degree or any experience. High school is sufficient.
Yes.
Okay.
And then once you get hired, you have to pass the physical exam, drug testing, TB testing, and then once you pass all that, you do 6 weeks of an academy, and then first year of probation.
Okay, so lots of training that goes along, on-the-job training that goes along with this.
Yeah, the vast majority of that first 6 weeks is on the job, and then after that, you start off on the job shadowing stuff.
Okay, so if I were hired as a correctional officer, is there a typical day, or what would my day look like?
Well, you can drive to work, pick up your radio, your keys, you put on everybody has to wear a utility belt, with minimum cups, chemical irritants, you report to your boss, a living unit, control center, supervising the offender crew. There's a lot of different posts for officers. The average day is a lot of observation. It seem to be boring at times, but that can escalate to very dangerous and wild times in a split second. A lot of our situations are just dealing with officer presence, communication skills, verbal directives. We can mainly get our compliance that way. If that doesn't work, go to the force continuum all the way up to hands-on, chemical irritants, intermediate weapons, whatever it might be. And it's not uncommon. We get fights quite regular. We deal with a lot of incompatibility issues, people getting extorted, and just ongoing.
Okay, so you mentioned that you were the intake facility. So do you classify inmates? Can you talk about that, and what level of security is this institution?
Security levels for the institutions go 1 through 5, with 1 being the minimum, 5 being max. They determine the facility security levels with operational needs and structural needs. For instance, a level 4 has requirements for mandatory armed outside patrol, or you might have secure perimeter mandates for armed officers on the wall, things like that. So once you have designated facilities, when they come into our facility, they're seen right in the intake area, their fingerprint, they're asked a series of questions, they take pictures of them, just tattoos, see health service right away, and then they're brought into the intake unit, which is an area supervised. You spend about 30 days in there, they go through orientation. First full day they're there, and then they're seen by health service, psychology, alcohol, drug assessment, education testing. A lot of things going on to help their classification. Within the 14 days, first 14 days, their case manager should enter data relevant to their classification score. And their classification score is a number. It's the factors of your current criminal conviction, what that is, past criminal history in the last 10 years, your behavior in prison in the last 5 years, and then there are blocks in the classification. For instance, if you have life without parole, you cannot go below level 5 no matter what. So it doesn't matter any other factors. So then the 28 to 45 days of classification officer and your team meeting, they give you a score, and that'll determine your classification. At that point, we'll decide by classification, treatment needs, and there's a number of factors of what facility you need to move to, and then we'll transfer from there. And it's not uncommon for us to get 40 offenders in and maybe 40 out, so it's very good.
So the intake part doesn't happen in a day or two. It actually takes a few weeks.
Yeah, when they come into EOS, they probably spend approximately the first 30 days in that intake unit, then they move to the next unit. Sometimes they can transfer right from the house. Probably in about 3 weeks, they're done with most of their intake needs, all their assessments and testing and stuff like that.
You talked about a lot of things that a correctional officer might do, and in our text we've talked a lot about professionalism and issues related to just being healthy as someone who works in this field. What contributes to correctional officer professionalism?
You're supposed to treat everybody with respect, be courteous, and you give respect and give respect. People that seem to be successful in this career have the ability to deal with the stress that we have in this type of environment, and a way to deal with it away from work also, and take the high road in tough situations.
Do you have advice for students today who are interested in going into this field?
Yeah, most people that are good corrections officers are good observers, they're good communicators, they have good de-escalation skills. These people are incarcerated, but they're human beings and you treat them as such. As long as that's what they command at the time, they escalate down. That's another situation. But those are the people that are most successful. Like I said, there are a lot of rewards as far as dealing with people, and sometimes you can make a difference in situations. But keep in mind, it can be very boring and get complacent to very exciting in a split second. So you see a lot of different things around here. Really, even though it seems dull, there never is a dull moment around here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and so you can see that there's a lot of points that I share with you that dealing with this job and the education that is required, and then they want individuals who are firm, fair, and consistent, individuals who are able to be strong. They need good communicators. Remember, that was one of the issues that they discussed, and that is, of course, one of our #1 transferable skills that we share with you guys as students, that you get a chance to exercise as you do your course project, so that throughout this course curriculum, throughout the curriculum of this college, that we focus on things that will prepare you to be able to do a good job there. So, and that's how prisons operate generally. So now, before I conclude, I want to take you to Module 7, where we deal with correctional programs. And let's take a look at the assignments dealing with your state program for a 2-page document. Again, there's your rubric right there, and it tells you what you have to do dealing with your state in a 2-page paper. And make sure you have citations and references as well. So now I want to go back and I want to make some comments for you. There's your discussion post, and then your third part of your interview project from week 2, week 4, and week 7, and then you have one more. Week 9 is when your final is going to be due, which I'll talk about during week 8. So what you now have is to have dealt with the interview questions. And again, the interview questions are located in Module 1 under the lesson content. Come all the way down to the course project, and we get to here we are, the required interview questions. These are 5, and then there should be 3 questions of your choice. Okay, So these are the 5 questions. That's where you'll find them. So you don't have to ask me where to find them. And then we'll go back to the 7, and then you actually see the assignment itself. So you're going to submit these questions and answers. Make sure they're detailed. Don't just give me quick, fast, in a hurry. Double space. Make sure you have APA format. Now, in this course, in this particular project, APA format usually requires a cover page, which is needed, Roman 12, which is needed, double space, but it also usually requires citations and references. But notice this difference. For just this assignment, when we get down here, it tells you in bold print, APA, title page, references are not necessary. So if you put in references, that's okay, but they're not necessary for this assignment. Citations in the body, though, are. And somebody asked, how do you do that? Take a look at APA, and it tells you how to provide in-text citations in the paper. So just remember that you don't have to do a reference page for the course project interview report. Now, when you get to week 9, I'll talk about the role that weeks 2, 4, and 7 play in completing the assignment on point. So, and that's what you want to do. Make sure that you continue, though, to research for issues, and then those research issues could be addressed in your final paper along with other requirements that they have there. And so those are due a week from Sunday. In other words, that's the 11th. It'll be due the 18th. Okay? That's week 7. And then, of course, we will have our lecture for week 8 the following week. Okay? So that's what I wanted to share with you. And if you have any questions about the assignment, feel free to reach out to me. You know how to do it. And like I said again, it is important that you listen to the lecture, even though there are no points given. But what is given is valuable information to help you to perform well in this class. We've only got, we're at the halfway point. So we'll have 5 more weeks coming up after week 6. So we have week 7, week 8, 9, 10, and then 11. And then the quarter will be over. Okay? So with that, I'm going to say good night to you and have a good evening.